So welcome everybody, and just to let you know, I'm recording this through screencast so it can go on YouTube. So if you don't have to worry about writing down a bunch of stuff. I'll post it to the YouTube channel, and you can always go back and re-listen to the parts that you want. Of course, take notes that you need to take, but it's not necessary. I'll put it on the YouTube channel. So if you ask a question, please just kind of speak up so the mic can capture it. Okay, and I'll try to come a little closer so that we can hear. So my name is Doug Masterson. I'm the Associate Dean in the College of Science and Technology, and I'm also a member of the SPUR committee, or the Center for Undergraduate Research's steering committee. And so today our goal is really to help demystify the proposal process. I want this to be a very informal situation, so if you all have any questions at any time, please don't hesitate to stop me, and we'll talk about whatever we need to talk about, whatever you want to know more about. So today I'm going to try to help demystify that proposal process, because for many of you it's very different than your typical writing assignments, right? So you've been writing term papers and you've been writing a variety of things throughout your life, but probably you haven't written too many proposals. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the difference in that between those two things might be. We're going to talk about what makes an excellent proposal, okay, because we only fund excellent proposals. So I'm going to help you figure that out. And it, of course, starts with the idea. I'm assuming that most people at least have some idea of what they're thinking about, or you wouldn't be thinking about submitting for an SPUR, right? So you've probably already got that. And that's the one thing that I can't help you with explicitly. You're going to need a mentor for that, okay? Because the ideas are very different. How many people in here are in the sciences? And in the arts, or letters, or health, or whatever the case may be? Some different areas, right? So it's pretty broad. You're going to need to have an involved faculty mentor. That's very, very important part of the process, okay? In terms of what SPUR is after. We're after a great idea, a good student, and a heavily involved faculty mentor. We need to know that you have some excitement about what you want to do. We should be reading your proposal and know that you really want to do this. This is something that you want to answer. This is something you want to pursue, something you want to create, okay? So we're looking for your excitement about the project in here through your writing, okay? We also, an excellent proposal also has high quality and clarity in writing. You're not going to have an infinite amount of space to tell us what you need to do or what you want to do. You have to be very concise, and it needs to be written in a way that somebody outside of your field, but educated, okay, can understand what it is that you're trying to do. So for example, if somebody in here is doing something in the arts, I might actually get that proposal, but I'm a chemist. But you need to write it in a way that somebody who's been to college for a long time, and still in college actually, right? I could understand what it is you're trying to do. And if you're in the sciences, your proposal might end up going to somebody, a faculty member who's in the arts. So you need to write from a viewpoint that a variety of people can understand. And one of the things that I like to say is, write it so that your grandmother can understand it. Okay, that's a good way to think about it.
Interrupt really quickly. Actually, on the committee, the three people who read it, usually one is going to be pretty close to your field, one will be somewhat adjunct, and one will be deliberately totally out of field.
Yeah, so you're going to have a broad audience that you have to convey your idea to, okay? So that's why we're talking about quality and clarity in your writing. And of course, an appropriate budget. So we pay more attention to the budget than you might think, and we'll get into that here in just a little bit, but we do go through kind of with a fine-tooth comb what you're asking for the money and making sure that it's appropriate to achieve the goals that you have set out. So we do spend quite a bit of time looking at your budget, okay? So again, the idea, that's the first thing that we want to talk about. This is the most difficult part of any proposal. It's the thing that professors spend their entire careers thinking about. We always think about ideas, right? And how we can put together proposals to get those ideas funded so that we can get our research done. It's the stuff that causes a lot of frustration sometimes to come up with that excellent idea. The good news is that most of you are in this room because you already have at least the seeds of an idea that you might want to pursue, right? So you've got something that is of interest to you, and so that's at least a good starting point, okay? Your idea needs to be original, and it must be your own project. Okay? It needs to be original. It needs to be your own project. Now, what do I mean by original? I mean, you're not going to just repeat something that a graduate student is doing, and that's all you're doing. Okay? It's got to be your own in the sense that these objectives are yours and yours alone. Okay? You can be working as part of a bigger team on a project, but you have to have something that's clearly your own in this, that's what's you're proposing in the idea. We will not fund projects where you're just a laboratory assistant to help the graduate student graduate, okay, or something like that. So, we're not going to pay you money to do research and end up washing other people's dishes, for example, okay? That's not the thing. We want to know that you're going to be involved in an original question or an original goal, original piece of scholarly activity, and that you have goals that are your own to pursue, okay? Needs to be something that you're interested or passionate about, as I mentioned earlier, clearly communicated. And again, I can't emphasize this enough, don't assume that the panel will understand your idea. Okay, if you're an art major and you're talking about sculpture, the only thing I've ever had in art was I had an art appreciation class 25 years ago, okay? I know a little bit about it. I know what I like when I see it, right? But you're going to have to communicate that to me as a scientist in a way that I'll understand why it's important that you want to pursue that. Maybe you want to do a new sculpture, right, using a new piece of material that's never been done before. As a scientist, I can understand why that might be important if you communicate it that way to me, okay? So always keep in mind that you're going to have this broader audience that's going to be reviewing your proposal. Like Dr. Danforth said, you're definitely going to have at least one person on your review that is deliberately outside your area. So think about that as you start putting together your proposal, okay? So first thing you need to know is where you're going to end up expressing your idea in the proposal. There's a couple of places. The first is a short cover letter. You're going to have a box that'll allow you to type as much as you can type into that box. It comes out to around 250 normal words. All right, if you're using big, long words, it's going to be less. If you're using smaller ones, it's going to be more. But about 250 average words, okay? This is where you're going to tell us why you're interested in the project. This is where you'll describe the idea. You're going to talk about where the idea came from. You're going to illustrate your enthusiasm for the project here. Notice I keep focusing on the you part, right? A lot of times you've been taught not to use first person when you're writing. Here it's perfectly acceptable and encouraged. We want to know what you feel about your project, okay? Very important here, this is not an abstract of the submission. It's not. This is a part of the submission. This is not the abstract. This is where you're telling us your enthusiasm, where the idea came from. If the idea came to you in the middle of the night and you woke up and wrote down the idea, that's cool. This is where you want to express that, right? If the idea came because you were in an advising session with your advisor and he or she and you were talking about something and an idea popped up, that's cool to know. This is where you would express that kind of piece of information that you might want to communicate with us, okay? You're also going to have a section called the introduction/rationale, and the box here is going to be about twice the size of the box above, and you're going to have about 500 words to tell us what your question is or your goal and why it's important. You're going to place your question or your goal in context, right? What have other people done? Why is what you're doing unique? That kind of thing. Make sure you use literature of a scholarly nature for your citations. Tell us what's going to be advanced if your goal is achieved or your question answered. For example, Nishal, who's working with Dr. Bates still, I believe, right? If you achieve your goal, you're going to have plants that make more oil, right? In the lab as a general. I don't remember exactly what you're working on, right? And why is that important, right? Well, you need to have more oil to do a variety of things. Biofuels is one possibility, right? Fine chemicals, the whole 9 yards. So tell us what's going to be advanced if your goal is achieved or your question answered, okay? The mentor. This is a very, very important part of the application as well. Your mentor must be involved. That does not mean that they're doing your project for you, but they need to be an actively involved guide from day one to the end, okay? And it's very important that we know that in the application, and I'll show you where your mentor will make comments about that in a moment, okay? But you need to have a mentor that's going to be around. That does not mean that they have to be physically with you all the time, but we need to know that they're going to be in regular communication with you, guiding you, helping you through the normal pitfalls that you're going to have, right? I have yet to have a research project that has gone according to plan ever. I mean, I've never had one of my research projects that I wrote it down on paper like this, and this is exactly how it ended up, okay? You're going to run into pitfalls. You're going to run into places where you need to have some mentoring to help you figure out how to get around the problems, okay? And so that's why we need to have an actively involved mentor. Your mentor must be affiliated with the Center for Undergraduate Research. If there is somebody there who you want to, or if there's somebody on campus that you want to work with that is not affiliated with the Center for Undergraduate Research, it's a fairly easy process to become affiliated with the Center for Undergraduate Research. And so you'll need to ask them to get affiliated. Basically what they need to do is go on the website, and there's a faculty affiliation form. I forget what the title is. Is it a faculty affiliation form? An FAF? It's a simple mock form. It's pretty straightforward, okay? And I don't know, do we know what the percentage of faculty who are affiliated? 25%.
Maybe 2 percentage points more.
Oh, well, that's good. So a good chunk of us are already affiliated with the Center for Undergraduate Research. Do you know how to identify quickly whether or not you're somebody on the campus is affiliated with the Center for Undergraduate Research? You can ask them. That's a good one. But they should have on their door a little placard that says faculty affiliate with the Center for Undergraduate Research's symbol on it. So if you walk by somebody's office and they have this black and gold placard taped to their door and it says faculty affiliate, you know that they're affiliated with the Center for Undergraduate Research. You can knock on the door and talk with them about being your mentor, okay? I think most of us are proud enough to put that on there. I've got 2 or 3 of them actually, every different place that I call home on campus. And so most of us are proud of the fact that we're affiliated with the center and proud to show our placards, okay? To be affiliated, they will have had to have completed the responsible conduct of research training through the city program. That's something that they'll have to do. That's not your problem, but that's a part of being affiliated and being a mentor. They'll need to complete the mentor form as part of your application. Notice what it says. It says statement of support. It does not say letter of recommendation. We are not asking them to provide you a letter of recommendation. We assume because they're willing to take out of their busy schedule time to mentor you, they would recommend you for the award, okay? What we want to know is a clear summary of how they intend to support you through the process, okay? There's a bunch of stuff up there that they will be promising, okay? But basically, we want to know in detail how they are going to mentor you as the student. We want to know that they're going to be there with you every step of the way, help you through your problems, meet with you regularly, all that kind of stuff. We do not need a letter of recommendation. We need a letter of support, a statement of support from them. And so they're going to promise that if you get an award, that they're going to mentor you for advice, that they've reviewed and approved the budget included in the proposal, that they understand that the funds will be placed in their account to be spent on your expenses. We'll talk more about that later, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so you all can read the rest of that, but that's what your mentor needs to be addressing in that statement of support. And it would be in your best interest as you talk to your mentor about your application that you reiterate to them that this needs to be a statement of support, not a letter of recommendation. Many of us have letters of recommendations for our students. Sometimes we like to just cut and paste from those kinds of things, but this really wouldn't be an appropriate place to do that. So this would be a place where they need to really write that statement of support about what they're going to do to make sure, to the best that they can, that your project is going to be successful, okay, that you're going to be successful in completing the project, wherever that may lead. You're also going to have a section on methods and process. Okay, in the process section, you're going to have about 300 words to use. This is where you're going to tell us what you're going to do to complete the project. And again, what will you do to answer your question? Okay, you may be waiting on another researcher to complete something before you get something that you need in your research. That's fine, but don't waste a bunch of space talking about what they're doing. We need to know what you're going to do once you've received what you needed to complete your project or answer your question. Okay? This is where you'll talk about scientific method if you're in the sciences, or if you're in the creative side of things, what kind of creative methods you'll use to achieve your goals. Okay? This is where you'll talk about any kind of non-standard equipment or material needs that you might need. Okay? For your particular project. There may be a piece of equipment that you absolutely need to complete the project that we don't have on this campus. This is where you need to talk about that, okay? You may need to go to a library in another town and you're asking for travel. Tell us that. Tell us why you need to go there. But remember, we pay attention to these things. So if you say, I need to go to Jackson to use the public library because they got a collection on X, and somebody on the committee goes, well, we've also got that collection here. You know, we're not going to look too favorably on the fact that you said you needed to go to Jackson to use what we currently have here. Okay, so make sure you check availability of things on campus, okay, before you ask for it. So describe those off-campus needs in detail. And again, remember, not everybody's going to be familiar with your field, and so your methods that you're going to be using may not be readily apparent to a reviewer, so use as common a language as you can to describe what it is that you need to do. Make it as understandable, again, to someone like your grandmother as you possibly can, okay?
Do you want to talk about the equipment that you purchased, the larger equipment in the space here?
I thought I would talk about that when we got to budget.
Budget, okay.
Because there's the equipment line there, and we can talk about that at that point. You're going to have a place to talk about a timeline. You're going to have about 150 words. This is how you're going to schedule your time for this. Does everybody know how much time you need to expend over the course of a semester for an Eagle SPUR award? For a semester.
Oh, two different programs, yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about Eagle SPUR.
Okay, so this would be the
For the fall, let's say for the fall. How much time should you spend minimum on an Eagle SPUR award? We ask that you expend 150 cumulative hours.
10 hours.
About 10 hours a week, 15-week semester. Now that's going to fluctuate a little bit from time to time. You may spend 10 hours one week, you may spend 5 hours the next week, and then 15 hours an upcoming week. And that, you know, it's just on average, but we feel that for the resources we're giving, the project should need around 150 cumulative hours from you to work on it. So we need to know how you're going to schedule your time to make that happen. You're all enrolled full-time when you have an Eagle SPUR, right? So let's assume you're just enrolled in the 12 hours. That in and of itself is almost a 40-hour commitment just to your schoolwork, right? Because you got the 12 hours of class, and then you've got the 2 hours per credit hour of outside study time minimum, right? Typically is what it takes. That's why 12 hours is called full-time, because it's about 40 hours a week. And then on top of that, we're asking you to spend 15 hours, right? And then if you're working a part-time job, we know how to add, right? So we know at some point things start to become impossible. So we need to know how you're going to schedule your time to make things happen. Again, it's more important than you think, because when we find out that you know, you're taking 16 hours and you tell us that you're going to spend 300 hours that semester on the project, we know that just doesn't add up. So be honest about where it's at. I like to use a Gantt chart format. I won't talk too much about it, but this is a way for you to plan out your timeline, and then you can use that to you know, write your timeline narrative. Yes?
So can that amount of hours that you want to be put into the project change depending on the amount of hours we're taking each semester?
That 150 cumulative hours is the minimum that we require.
Okay.
So, and again, it can fluctuate a little bit from week to week, but at the end of the semester, you need to have expended 150, minimum of 150 hours. Those are the types of projects that we're looking for.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Part of it is just that we want this to be a big enough project.
Right.
So.
Yeah, if the project really is only going to require you to spend 20 hours over the semester, it's really not a project that we feel would merit a monetary award to make that happen. Okay? And again, consult with your mentor on this. Very, very important. As junior researchers, you don't have the experience yet to know how long it's going to take to do something. For example, I can spend 3 minutes with my students and say, I need you to do this during the week. And it looks like it should be done in 20 minutes, and then they get into the lab and they come back and they go, that took 10 hours. I'm like, well, by the time you get all the preparation ready and you figured out that not everything was already ready-made in the bottles for you, right? You had to go through and make solutions and do those kinds of things. It takes more time than you think. But you won't know that unless you talk with your mentor who's actually an expert in the field, right? At least in a related field. And so they can give you some guidance. And vice versa, sometimes you think, oh, that's going to take a long time, and your mentor's going to go, you should have this done in an hour. I mean, we've got all the stuff that you need to do that really quickly. And so that's just a question of experience. So rely on their experience and their time management skills to help you develop an appropriate schedule for your work. Is there any question about that? I know we had one question. Did we answer your question well enough?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Be realistic and be clear. You know, we know what's not realistic. Don't think that, oh, if I promise more time, that's going to give me a bigger edge on getting one of these awards. Be realistic, be clear. We're interested in can you accomplish what you tell us you're going to accomplish. You're going to have a section on expected outcomes. This is where you're going to tell us what you're going to produce at the end. Okay? Some of you may be working on developing some type of new technology. That's why we've got the oil rig up there. I don't know why I picked that one, but I did. Some of you may be more in the sciences and are trying to answer a scientific question. Or some of you may be on the more creative side, building a sculpture or a painting or a dance or putting together a musical score or what? Building the Sphinx, yeah. It looks good, right? So whatever it is, you need to tell us what that is, what's going to be produced at the end. Okay, what do you expect to have at the end of this 150-hour effort? Okay. You also need to tell us how you're going to share your work with others. Very important. It's not enough just to do the work. You have to do the work and share it with others. Okay? That's what makes society go around. Okay? That's what makes things work. Okay? So how can we share our work with others?
Scientific publications.
Okay, a scientific publication would be an excellent choice. What else can we do?
Symposium.
A symposium, the undergraduate research symposium. Good. What else? So we have publications, we have oral communication through a symposium. What else do we have? Could do a poster presentation, absolutely. Anything else possible?
Tell everyone.
Well, you could. You could. If you're doing something more artistic, maybe you're going to have a showing over in the art gallery, for example, a public viewing of whatever it is that you've done. Or maybe you did something, and you're going to record it and make a YouTube video out of it or something. Then you're going to share it through multimedia of some sort. I mean, there's many ways in which you can share your work, but you need to let us know how you're going to share your work with others. Okay?
We can offer some places if we go to the Student Opportunity Center. Have you all heard about that? No, we're paying good money for it. The university is subscribing to something called, and it's one word, studentopportunitiescenter.com. And it is specifically built for undergraduates, actually by undergraduates, that has internships, grants, conferences, publication opportunities. It's cut up by, I think, 79 different fields. You can do it by regional area. And it's supposed to be increasing in its size 5% every month and the whole bit. So please go there and take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
Student Opportunity Center.
Student Opportunity Center.
One word.
Through our webpage, the Center for Undergraduate Research.
And we've also launched the Catalyst, relaunched the Catalyst.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're going to be sent, well, actually, I think Fernandez has gone out to faculty to try to solicit papers from students, but also the students that are participating in the undergraduate symposium as paper winners are going to be invited to participate as well.
Good.
But,
That's
but
cool.
Yes, that's up and running. The person who's doing it is J.D. Ryman, who is currently being interviewed for the Truman Award.
Oh,
Have you guys heard that there are two Truman finalists? I'm not sure what you get it. It's a very prestigious scholarship.
Mhm.
He's actually one of the two finalists in the USM.
good. Another thing that you have to do is you have to present your work within 1 year at a scholarly venue. Okay? So that would be different than just publishing. So the undergraduate research symposium that we have in April every year will be an opportunity for you. Some departments have opportunities for you to share your research as undergraduates to the department. So I'm in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. Every semester we have an undergraduate seminar at the end of the semester where the undergraduates can come in and share their work that they've been working on for the semester. Any other opportunities that you can think of where you could go and present your work in a scholarly venue? Okay, so for example, we have the Mississippi Academy of Sciences that usually meets in Hattiesburg every February, late February, early March kind of range. Any others?
For ours, wouldn't it just be showing it at a gallery?
You could show at a gallery, but that's not a scholarly venue necessarily, right? If you go over here to Starbucks and where the art gallery is and you showed it, that really wouldn't be that would be sharing it with others, but that wouldn't be sharing it at a scholarly venue. At least I wouldn't claim it as such.
But maybe at the USM Museum when they have the senior exhibition.
Now that might be, yeah, where you had a gathering of scholars to actually talk and critique and discuss. So most of your fields actually have, practically all of our fields, have organizations and associations that give annual meetings usually. If you were fortunate enough to be able to attend one of those and present your work in either a poster format or an oral presentation, that would be certainly acceptable. Okay, but within a year, you have to present your work at a scholarly venue. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the budget. Okay, you're going to have a space where you can talk about the things that you need to spend the money on. You'll notice it's broken down into commodities, equipment, travel, salary, stipend, and then there's some other space that I've cut off where you can add some additional information. Does anybody know the difference between a piece of equipment and a commodity? Go ahead.
Equipment is necessary for the study. A commodity could be something that you could measure some other way, but you would like to have it for the study.
Okay. Any other definitions?
Summing it up, I guess, it's something you need and something you don't need to do what you need to do.
Okay. Actually, everything that goes on this is something that you need. If you don't need it, don't request it. Okay? A commodity, in my mind, is something that's consumable. So, for example, in chemistry, we use chemicals quite a bit, but I use them and they're consumed. They're utilized in the process. If you're in the arts and let's say you're doing a big mural of something, right? A commodity would be the paint. You can't put the paint back in the bucket and use it for something else. A piece of equipment, however, is something that's more permanent and can be used repeatedly, for example. So in my field, you might need a scale, for example, to weigh out chemicals. I can use it more than once, right? It's not consumed during the process. Okay, so when you're thinking about commodities, that may be, if you're doing surveys, that might be the paper for the surveys, that would be the ink, the toner, office supplies are considered commodities. The university definition is a little different. Equipment is stuff that has a certain dollar value and actually gets a sticker and has to stay with the university. So for example, let's say you're going to go, I think the example you used yesterday was you're going to the Delta and you're going to do a survey of people that live in the Delta. That's what you need to do to answer your question. And to do that and to keep track of everything, let's say you need a tablet so that you can record notes and maybe record their voice, whatever the case may be. But you don't have an iPad, right? So you put in here, I need an iPad, and it's going to cost $500. Perfectly legitimate, okay? Number one, that piece of equipment isn't yours. It's actually property of the university. It has to stay with the university, and it will receive a property tag that you'll have to account for. And that's one of the things that your mentor will promise to help you keep up with, right, is making sure that your iPad just doesn't end up at your house forever, okay? There are certain rules that we have to live with, and those rules are we're spending state money, and state money comes with strings, okay? It always... yeah. I hope I can edit that out. That's right. So just because you say, "Oh, I'm gonna get a new iPad out of this," no, that iPad is there for you to do the job you need to do for your research, not to give you a cool new toy. Okay. So remember, at the end, when you're done, that will have to be turned back over to the university to be redistributed to somebody else, actually. So keep that in mind as you think about the things that you're budgeting for. Yeah, Nisha.
Wouldn't you have to get stuff from a specific vendors that's in accordance with...
That's right. Yep, that's a good point. So you can't just go buy anything from anywhere. And I used my own example yesterday. I got my hand slapped a while back because I actually went and bought a toner cartridge for my laser printer in the office at Office Depot. You would think you could just go to Office Depot and get what you need for your office, right? It turns out that the university has a contract, a state contract with a vendor, and that's where you're supposed to do all your purchasing through. So we do have state contracts for things like computers, office equipment, paper. Yeah, you can't just go to Walmart and buy a ream of paper and get reimbursed, okay? There are places that you have to go. Now, I know, and believe me, I can't keep track of all this. That's why we have certain staff on campus. That's their job to know the differences, okay? So you need to talk to your mentor about that. When you say, I need to buy a ream of paper for something, they should be telling you where you'll have to buy that from. Or if you're going to buy an iPad, you have to buy that through iTech, right? So you can't just go down to Best Buy, get the model that you want, and come back and get it reimbursed. It has to go through certain channels, okay? If in doubt, always ask, okay? That's the best advice that I can give you here.
One thing with purchases, and I think it's been able to be allowed, a lot of psychologists will give out $5 little gift cards. Those are allowed, right?
Yes, but you have to check with purchasing on that too, because there's some tax implications.
So it can get complicated. When you have money, it always gets complicated, right? It's not as easy as we would like. But you have to remember we're spending the taxpayers' dollars, and they expect accountability, and rightly so, I think. So just keep that in mind. Travel, you can request money for travel. So again, using the example of going to the Delta, right? You live in Hattiesburg, you want to go somewhere in the Delta, there's miles in between. It means you got to have gas, mileage, you know, the real expenses. You can request that kind of money there.
What if the travel is for the actual presentation of the expected outcome?
I'll let Dr. Danforth mention that just a little bit. There's a new program.
There's a new program that we have, it's called Eagle Wings, and we're trying to steer projects that are just for the presentation of the work to the Eagle Wings, because that's for conference travel. So it's not impossible. So if you do part of the project and then you want to use some of the funds to present the project, that's okay, but we're trying to get away from just being the only focus of the money being travel.
Mm-hmm.
So like projects that like use the money for travel be less likely to receive the...
No, not necessarily. So let's suppose you're doing survey work and you need to make 3 or 4 trips to the Delta. Most of your budget could actually be in travel, but that's money to actually go collect data for the project, not to go present the... Eagle Wings is about going to conferences to present completed projects.
Have you done the work yet?
No.
No, because that's one thing that we're trying to encourage the research process is what we're supporting, not just the final product. And so if you're going to be conducting the project and then at the end of the semester, there's some travel involved with it, that would be okay.
Yeah.
But what we don't want is someone to say, I've got this project already done, I just want $1,000 so I can go present it at some venue
That would be a case where you would want to apply for Eagle Wings.
Most definitely for Eagle.
Yeah.
Eagle Wings.
Eagle Wings, that's right.
Too many eagles.
That's right, we've got a lot of eagles here, don't we?
So
So, if travel is involved in collecting the data, going to libraries, doing surveys, going to collect specimens in a river somewhere, whatever the case may be, those are legitimate travel expenses, okay?
And sometimes you might need to travel to get in touch with somebody, want to talk with somebody at a conference that was necessary for interpreting your data, whatever. There's a lot of different ways travel can become important here.
Yep. Salary stipend, you can pay yourself a small salary or stipend. This would be an important place to put some money. For example, let's say you are self-supporting, yourself, right? You're kind of on your own, and you've got to pay rent and all the different kinds of costs that come in, and you're working a job 20 hours a week to do that. But if I do the job for 20 hours a week, there's no way I can do the research. Well, you can buy out some of your work time, if you will. Make an arrangement with your employer, and then to where you don't work as many hours, and then you can make up some of the difference at least by paying yourself a salary or a stipend. However, having said that, you need to remember that anytime you take a salary or a stipend, you are going to be liable for taxes, and it could have an impact on your financial aid because you are receiving money, okay? I don't suspect that it will happen if you're buying yourself out from your job, if you will, but it's a possibility. Notice in the middle columns we have justification. You have to tell us why what you're requesting there is necessary, okay? On the commodity side, for example, if you just wrote paint and then you wrote $100, I don't know why you need that paint, especially if you're doing a project that doesn't look anything to do with art at all. I would be going, why do you need paint? But maybe you do for a particular reason. Maybe your project requires you to paint something for a particular outcome. I don't know. Huh? You could. Maybe you need a soy-based ink to do that. That would be a legitimate expense. But tell us in the justification. Don't just leave it blank. Okay? And then the exact amount. You'll total up at the end. The total may actually come out to be more than $1,000, and that's okay. If that's the case, below that you'll have some space to actually write about where you're going to get the extra money. Okay? This is where you need to consult with your mentor. And the mentor should also comment on this on their mentor statement. So in the sciences, quite frequently, $1,000 won't cover the commodities that we need, right? But a student might have $1,000 in commodities and the project comes out to be $2,500, but in my mentor statement, I would say something like, well, I have some money from Enbray, which will be used to support the remaining commodities, okay? Or maybe you have some money to help with the travel from the Honors College or the McNair program. Put that in there as well, okay? It's okay for that number to be above $1,000. Remember, we can only give you up to $1,000, but anything over $1,000, you need to tell us how you're going to cover those expenses. Because if you can't cover those expenses, right, then you can't do the research, and why would we give you the $1,000, right? We're not paying for a partial project. We're paying for an entire project to be completed, okay? And so we're here to assist in any way that we can with that. Are there any questions about the budget?
Is it negotiable at all? Like, could I write everything up and then in the salary put 150, not justify it? Would the committee be like, okay, everything else, let's justify, let's give her 750 instead of 1,000 because this is not justified, or is it just denied?
Yeah, I mean it is, but you really should justify it. I mean, if you need $750 really to do your project, and you went, oh well, I'll just put in the extra 150 so I could put a little money in my pocket. We wouldn't necessarily just discount your proposal if it was a really good proposal, but we would definitely adjust your budget because you didn't justify the salary. So, but if you really think you need that 150, justify it. If you don't really need the 150, don't ask for it. Okay? So it needs to be detailed and realistic. Remember, you're not getting free money. Must be justified. No per diem or mileage estimates allowed. and indicate other funding sources. Those are the big take-home points. Okay, so if you need $850 and you're requesting $850, you don't have to tell us anything about other funding sources because we're going to cover it. If it's going to cost you $1,250, you're asking for $1,000, where's the other $250 coming from? Okay? You're going to have a section on the bibliography. Okay? Make sure you use scholarly literature, things like journals and books, things that you would find over in the library. Okay? Use databases to find any needed references that you might have. Google doesn't always find everything. Okay? The librarians here at Southern Miss are very good about helping students find information. They know more about information retrieval than I do. I'm SciFinder, which is in my field, and Google. But there are more search engines and databases available than that, and they can help you do that, and they're more than willing to take time out of their schedule to help you do that. That's part of their job. Okay? Make sure you use primary sources. Very important. We don't want to see Wikipedia. Wikipedia is not a primary source. It is a good resource, I will give you that, but it is not a primary scholarly piece of work, right? It is an encyclopedia at best, okay? You know, if I'm not very good at geography, so if I want to find out something about an area, I'll go to Wikipedia and I'll look it up. But I'm not writing a scholarly work with that information. I'm not putting it together a proposal with that information. So no Wikipedias, please, or other secondary sources like Encyclopedia Britannica or something, okay? Huh?
Review journals?
Review articles? Yeah, they're fine. But they're not, if it's all reviews, you haven't used the primary literature. I mean, maybe part of your argument is that this area is really hot in part of science because look at all these reviews that people are writing about it today, and we've got an area that hasn't been covered in any of these reviews, right? So that would be a possibility. No bibliography is a red flag for us. This is one of the things that makes my life really easy. If you don't cite anything, I'm not going to rate your proposal very high at all, okay? No matter what field you're in, somebody has worked in something at least similar. You can find primary work in scholarly journals and books about things related to your science or your project or whatever the case may be, okay? And so when I see one that comes through without a bibliography, I'm like, you don't really know what other people have done. How do I know that this is an original piece of work? And it makes it very easy for me to score. It scores very low.
Just an idea, I'm not philosophy or anything. What if someone had to, we're trying to do a project on metaphysics, for example?
People have done other things on metaphysics, right?
Other things, they created a new idea.
Yeah, don't think that's going to happen. Okay. So there are other people out there that have published in a scholarly journal about something similar to it, even if it's just people that have tried to debunk it, right? I mean, there's something out there. We have done a very good.
Necessarily be scholarly.
Oh yeah, there's scholarly journals out there on debunking stuff. Yeah, it exists. It's reviewed. Yeah, that happens. Scholar obligations. You're going to sign a student agreement that has a few things that you need to know about. One, when you sign this, you're giving the center access to your SPUR records in terms of GPA and to make sure that you're a full-time student. We're not going to give you money if you're not a full-time student, and we're not going to give you money if you're on probation. Okay, so we have to verify that. Okay, so we're going to look at those things. You agree to make satisfactory progress and expend at least 150 cumulative hours over the course of the semester in which the research is being conducted. What happens if life happens that semester? Let's suppose you got on to a good start and then you end up in the hospital and you're not going to be able to finish out the semester. We need to know. We're here to work with you on those kinds of issues if life happens. Okay? But we need to know. so that we can get together and determine the best course of action to help you ultimately achieve your goal. We give an extension, yeah, about every semester somebody gets an extension for something that just happens.
A lot of times it happens with the research. Something else that they were depending on didn't arise.
Yeah.
Or the plants didn't bloom that year or something like that.
Yeah. So some things can just happen, right? And so, but you need to let us know about it. You are going to agree to participate in professional development opportunities that are organized by the Center for Undergraduate Research. You're going to submit a 2-page report outlining the outcome of the project and how the funds were spent. You promise to present your results at a scholarly forum within a year of the award, and you'll use the funds consistent with the budget and bring any significant change in the budget to the attention of the CUR for approval. So let's say you've asked for $1,000, $500 of which is travel, because you thought you needed to make 3 trips someplace, and you found out after you took the first trip that, well, that first trip was all I really needed, so you've got some extra money. You can't just, oh, well, I'll just pay myself that $250 and put it in my pocket. Okay, so if you have a significant change to your budget, that needs to come to the Center for Undergraduate Research for approval. Okay?
And part of it would be hard too, because the mentor is the one who's filling it out.
That's right.
So you'd have to justify, they'd have to justify it, so.
The application online looks different. The student agreement has a couple more things, and there's no mentor fee. And the one online, that thing that the mentor had to write on how he was going to support it is also not in this one.
Huh. I wonder how that got knocked out. We'll have to check that out. But the UNV is probably mentioned instead of the workshop.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing.
Yeah, the UNV 392 is how we keep track of the workshops.
Okay.
So.
It's possible that one line got cut off because it's always a fight to try to fit everything on one page without having one line on one page by itself.
You're also going to, as part of this, you're really going to be agreeing to complete your RCR training. That's the city training. How many people have completed that before? Okay, so you should be good. It's good for 5 years, right, Joanne? So as long as you have your information with Joanne, you're good there. If your project involves human subjects, you're going to need IRB approval. Let's suppose you are awarded an Eagle SPUR award. We notify you at the end of the semester, this semester, that you're getting one. You come back to campus in the fall. You haven't completed any of this. You will not have access to your money day one. Joanne keeps very good track of this. And so you will have your award, but it is contingent on the fact that you are ready to actually accept the award. Okay, so IRB approval if you're working with human subjects. If you're working with animals, you'll need IACUC approval. Okay? Can't let you just go grab the feral cats and start doing research. Okay? It's not allowed. All right? You've got to have things approved because we have to be ethical in how we treat humans and animals, right? You can do whatever you want, I guess, to E. coli, but E. coli doesn't have feelings, I don't think. So, but things that have feelings, you've got to respect that and make sure that the research merits what you're going to do to that human subject or to that animal subject, right?
And IRB training, you talked about yesterday, you said it can take a long time too.
Yeah, it depends if you're just doing a survey or you're doing a qualitative survey, something like that, that doesn't take very long. But if you're going to be working with vulnerable subjects, pregnant women, prisoners, anything like that, that can take up to 6 to 8 years.
Yeah. So if you have a project that's in that realm, start now getting that IRB approval.
You can get IRB approval before you even apply.
Yeah.
So, and I should have mentioned that. Just in case.
You're also going to promise to meet regularly with your mentor?
Yeah.
The IRB approval? Yeah, the IRB process is part of the university's research process. Yeah.
Everything you pay them in an office.
No.
It shouldn't be free.
You're going to,
It shouldn't cost you any money.
yeah, that's right. It does not.
There's no money involved with
You're going to promise to meet regularly with your mentor. Fortunately, this doesn't happen often, but it has happened where the mentor contacts us and goes, I don't know what to do. The student's not coming in and doing the work. If we get information like that, we're going to pull the award. Okay? So make sure you meet regularly with your mentor to get the advice that you need to be successful.
What if the mentor has already used the funds
What do you mean, what if the mentor's already used the funds?
to buy the equipments and commodities, but the students stop showing up?
Well, we would try to get that money back.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean,
That's on the part of the mentor in that regard.
yeah, if
The
the
student just stopped showing up.
we're going to ask for our money back. We expect the project to be completed.
I was just saying, asking that.
Did you
because
quit showing up, Nishal?
No. It would put a significant.
Whether or not we actually could get the money back, that's a totally different question, and that's something that Joanne and the research department would have to take care of. But
And we would, I mean, at the end, there's a two-page report that's due, and if the student quit showing up, then we would not get the two-page report, so then we would investigate.
Yeah.
We've had
Find
some
out.
students that stopped their projects, but I don't think any of them ever have spent the money.
No.
Yeah.
And we have been reimbursed before.
so the mentor spends the money. The mentor's promising to spend the money as part of the mentor statement in accordance with the budget to support the student's project. And they know that we can ask for the money back if it's not, you know.
Yeah, what I was saying was, let's say the student required an equipment to start the
Yeah.
process. The equipment was bought, and the mentor has it, and it's in his lab or.
Well, that's not a situation that a student would need to worry about. So really what we would do is we'd deal with that behind the scenes, okay? But it would not look favorable, and we may decide not to support anything from that mentor in the future.
Yeah, because it comes
You know?
back on the mentor
Yeah.
misjudging that student. So.
Right.
Yep.
But that happens, I mean, that happens. I don't think we hold the mentor feet to the fire too much, but hopefully the mentor wouldn't spend all the money at once, and so you could see problems coming.
That's right. You must preserve your research record. That's a research requirement of the university. Talk to your mentor about the appropriate way of preserving your research record for your particular field. In my field, we use laboratory notebooks. Some fields use audio recordings and other types of research records. But whatever's appropriate for your field is certainly appropriate for your project. And that you will agree to attend the CUR workshops. And again, those are part of UNV 392 now. So if you're an Eagle SPUR winner, you will have to sign up for 1 hour of UNV 392 at no cost to you. We have that cost waived. It is kind of a hybrid format where part of it is online, part of it is face-to-face, like 4 and 4, is that right? 4 online kind of activities, which I'm not.
Oh, they're most of the workshops, and they're the ones that originally we had in person, but they've been recorded now, and so they deal with ethics, they deal with research methods, publications, presentations, and then there's a discussion board afterwards where Tony Sager from LEC asks questions, and the idea is to reflect on your own work using what you learned in that particular session.
So you get an hour of credit. It's transcripted as UNV 392. What's the title of the course? I can't remember what we proposed.
Eagle Scholars Research.
Something along those lines, yeah. So it's actually your research experience or the fact that you got an award will actually be transcripted because of that. So that's good. You'll have a hard record of the award you won. Remember, this is a competitive award. Not everybody's going to get one, and so that's something you definitely want to include on your resume and brag about.
Yeah, and this semester, three other requirements are check-in meeting, which we're doing next week, which is just to try to do a face-to-face talk with all the students in a room together, and just chat about what you're doing, asking if there's any problems, and we're trying to overcome if there is an issue, like what Michelle was talking about, that we can catch it before it gets out of hand. Fortunately, that's very, very rare. We're also asking you to attend the symposium, even if you don't participate, and then we have the 90-second presentations of your work afterwards, so that you learn how to do an elevator talk, for those of you that know that. And we have some awards for that. The best one to stick with.
Kind of some of those soft skills that you really need if you're going to be a successful professional. The 90-minute talk, you won't.
90 seconds.
The 90-second, I mean, excuse me. My talk's a 90-minute talk here, right? But the 90-second talk is more important than you all think. Being able to do that is something that can actually get you promoted and advanced and better paying jobs. And
You're at conferences and you're standing next to somebody famous in the Starbucks line. You're not going to have a long time.
Nope.
So if you can get that out quickly and make it an interesting fashion, they might say, oh, I know someone else who'd be interested in working with you or something.
Yep, that's exactly right. Let's talk a little bit about funding. This is kind of the fun part for us. The funding rate is about 50%. 50% in terms of a grade is a failing grade, right? But in terms of funding, it's actually quite good. I'm in a field where the funding rates are less than 10%. So more than 90% of my colleagues are in the same boat I'm in 90% of the time. Broke, right? The fact that we are around a 50% funding rate is something we're very proud of. We try to spend all of our money on you as much as possible. And so we're very proud of that fact. So even though you're like, oh, 50% funding rate, that's pretty good odds. And if you don't get it the first time around and you're going to be here in the upcoming semesters, think about reapplying. Our individuals who apply the second time, the funding rate's actually quite high, much more than 50%. I don't know the exact number, but
Close to 100, I wouldn't say right.
90-something percent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
90-something percent.
So,
Right under 100%.
you know, I can tell you that we frequently get to a discussion where it's always, you know, I wish we just had a little bit more money. We could pick up these next two. And that's why it's very important for you all to ask for only what you need, because if you're asking for things that are unnecessary and we ended up funding that, that means somebody else isn't going to get some money. So keep that in mind.
So, about the funding, you look
Go ahead, Nishal.
So, in labs, we have some commodities that's always going to be present. But
Yep.
if you don't, and it's an expensive commodity. But if you don't use it, it won't be, the professor wouldn't have to restock it, right? So, in situations like that, so here I'm specifically talking about radioactivity. We do have radioactive stock, but as soon as I use it, he'll have to reorder.
Yeah, but I mean, the radioactive materials that you are ordering for use in your project are a legitimate expense. But, I mean, and that's fine to ask for that.
It was already there, but after I used it up, he'd have to order it again.
Well, but he was going to be using that probably for some other people's projects as well, right?
Yes.
So you have a legitimate, I mean, it's a legitimate expense. You can request money for chemicals and for consumables, commodities, absolutely. I mean, you know, if you're using it, somebody else isn't going to use it, right? So his money would have to.
Yes.
So I mean, as long as we're covering the expense for your materials, it's okay. Now, if you're asking for money for radioactive compounds, and it turns out you don't need radioactive compounds, then you're not being honest, right? You don't need that. So.
You might be able to break it out, like if you have to buy a large amount, you only need a small amount, is that what you're thinking of, something like that?
Yes.
Then you prorate it. Yeah.
You prorate it, or you could buy one of it and then not, then the lab supplies something else that you need that you're not gonna buy. You know,
Absolutely.
something else.
Do you give reviews on why you not accepted?
No. You do not. We do not have the time to, or the people power really, to put together all of the reviews and supply it back as feedback. To do that, because you've got to go through and make sure that the reviews are anonymous, it's actually fairly labor intensive to do, and so that doesn't happen. If you don't get funded the first time, go and talk to your mentor. Have them sit down with your application again, look through it, and give you some pointers. And usually, I think that works because the resubmission rate is quite high. So,
I didn't know if it was high because of the reviews.
and sometimes it's just, you know, we ran out of money before we got to yours, and not that there was anything particularly wrong with it. And so the next time it comes through, you know, we know that it was submitted before and it ranked well. It just didn't make it to the cut line.
What if
What do you mean? I mean, are you meaning that you received the award, but you're no longer going to work on that project?
No, I've already, it's been and done.
Yeah?
It's a new project now.
Well, then it would be a new Eagle SPUR application. Yeah, you can get 2 Eagle SPUR awards. Students can be eligible.
Same area? In other words, what you might want to do is say how it's different from the first award. Is it new data you're collecting or something like
Well,
that?
I was working on these, now I'm working on these.
Okay, yeah,
Different parts of the plan?
that's fine. That's different. Nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
but if you can get 2 of them. And the resubmission rate isn't the reason that it's 50%. Resubmission rate is really pretty small. Part of it is because it's logistical. Most students are graduating, or usually they're doing this as seniors, so they don't have the ability to wait another semester to start the project.
Fortunately, we have a lot of good ideas. Unfortunately, we don't have an infinite supply of money, so that always means that we have more good ideas than there is money to spend, and that's why the funding rate is where it's at. Your money, do not expect a check in the mail. You will not see a check in the mail. Your money will be deposited in your mentor's development account, what we call a DE account. All the expenses will be run through that. You will not be given cash of any kind. So if you have an expense, you need to talk with your mentor about how that expense gets reimbursed or how that piece of equipment or that commodity gets purchased. Most mentors have access to things that are called P cards. They can order things and charge it against their DE account. You can also do purchase orders. Staff within your department can help with that. But there will be no check signed and delivered by Joanne to your home address. Okay, it's all accounted for by the university system.
But if someone does get a stipend, then that still goes through their mentors.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the mentor can decide how to do it at the
Yeah, the mentor.
end of the semester, once that's through, 2 payments or whatever.
Your 2-page report, again, must include a statement on expenditures. And very important here, you and your mentor are responsible for spending the money according to state law. Okay? And those can be tricky. So make sure, again, you want to go buy that printer cartridge, make sure you're buying it through somebody that's on state contract and it was in your budget. Okay? They can help you with that. Let's talk a little bit about how your proposal is going to be evaluated. So we've talked about what goes into making a good or an excellent proposal. Once we receive the proposals, we actually look at a chart that looks something like this, and we score each of these sections between 1 and 10, 10 being the best, 1 being not good. So we look at things like how complete is your proposal? Did you fill out all the sections? If somebody took the time to complete the proposal and somebody else did not, should that person who did not be judged on equal weighting as the person that took the time to complete everything? No, right? So we take that into account. Originality of the scholarly idea and plan, the definition of your problem. We look at the potential to contribute to the body of knowledge in the subject. In other words, has it been repeated? Or, are you repeating something that's already known, right? Or is it novel? The quality of your literature review, are you putting what you want to do in proper context with what other people are doing? The appropriateness of your research methods or your creative process. Maybe you're proposing a particular experiment that somebody's going, well, that won't answer that question. You're going to have somebody who's an expert, quote unquote, in your area looking at your proposal, and they know how these research methods are supposed to work. We're going to look at your timetable, the budget. We're going to look at the quality of the writing, your grade point average, and we're going to look at the quality of your mentor support. If we get a letter from your mentor that says, I promise to mentor this student, and that's all it says, that ranks around a 1. If it starts off by talking about how the mentor is going to develop a professional relationship with you, they're going to meet with you on a regular basis, and maybe they spell that out. I plan to meet with Nishal every other week for 30 minutes to talk about X, Y, and Z. I promise to be around when you run into problems, those kinds of things. That would score more towards the 10 range. And then we evaluate them. The numbers are given to Joanne, and then we have somebody that takes them and does the normalization of all the scores, and we rank the proposals based on that. And then we always have a few that we sit there and, debate about. Maybe the numbers came out a little lower, but maybe there's a little bit of an anomaly, and we will debate those a little bit. It is weighted. It's normalized. Well, all the numbers get normalized through the review process.
All the numbers in each field.
Overall, the overall scores. Yep.
We try to look, one thing we do try to do is also look, some people just are a little bit nicer, shall we say, or some people are more rigorous about the scoring. So we look at and see if the people routinely only give low scores, then that's where it becomes normalized. So so if you just happen to be lucky and get 3 of the higher scores, you're not going to necessarily be ahead of somebody who gets 3 of the more rigorous scores, because we're trying to do the statistics so that balances
Yeah.
each other out.
There's a statistical process for normalization that gets, it's kind of like how you would have your SAT scores normalized to a national average. A little different, but similar to that. I'm not an expert in that area, so I can't comment too much on it. Now, you're going to be submitting your proposal through the Aquila Digital Community, which is available on the library website. When you go to the Aquila Digital Community, at the lower left, you should see something that says Submit Research. That's where you're going to click on to submit everything. And a few things here have changed that we can comment a little bit on, but this is pretty accurate. If you already have access to Aquila, you're just going to log in with your email and your password. If you've never been on that site, you're going to create an account and create your account, sign up for it, and then you're good to go. Okay? You're going to have this submission agreement that you'll need to look at. You'll check this box that says that you agree to all the above terms. You'll click Continue, and that'll take you into the area where you can upload all your relevant information. I had to break this up into kind of 2 pieces because the page is quite long, but on the top half of the submission page, there'll be a place for you to put your title, a place for you to put your information. You're the author, right? The date of the submission, the department that you're in, your faculty mentor, okay? All that information will be put in there. And then on the bottom half, this is where you will upload your information. So you'll be able to upload your proposal file, and your mentor, refresh my memory on that, Marie.
The mentor should send the form directly to Joanne. The reason was that it was hard to get it. Originally, they had to send it to the student to upload it, and now we couldn't coordinate with each other.
Okay. So the mentor is not going to be through Aquila, but direct by email to Joanne. So.
And if you submitted to the UGS, you already have an Aquila account.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Because they're both using the same portal.
Cool. So if you have any questions, always feel free to go to our Center for Undergraduate Research webpage. You can find all kinds of information there. It looks a little different now. What is it, underfunded research? Or?
Yes, it's on the left. It's called funding programs. And that's also where you find out about the post-summer research grants, which it sounds like some of you might have heard of those. And you also have the application for that there in SPUR, which is under funding programs.
Yep. And if you're looking for a mentor, if you don't have a mentor, you can see who all is affiliated there. So all faculty who are affiliated get their name put in the website, and with the contact information is there as well, correct? Yes. And a picture of them so you can know who they are. Does everybody already have a mentor? Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of heads up and down. That's good. Okay, so that's all I had to talk about today. Does anybody have any questions for me or anything that I can help answer?
As far as like the timeline, you guys prefer a chart?
No, it would actually be kind of hard to put a chart in there. Just using that Gantt chart to try to plot out your time, I think, is very useful. So, you know, task 1 of my project is going to take a month, and task 2 might take this amount of time, and it helps you organize your time in a way that it's called project management, really. So it helps you organize what your timeline really needs to be, so then you can just put it into your narrative, what you're going to do, you know, for the first 3 weeks, the first month, whatever the case may be.
Okay, so weeks are good. Putting it like weekly timeline, like saying I'm going to do like American Lit like this week and this many hours.
Well, your literature review should occur before you submit the Eagle SPUR, right? Because you got to put that in context.
Well, that's not included. The time.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is that the lit review that you need to do, right?
Well,
No, that would already be done before you submit your. Now you can have some literature review, of course, in your project, right? I mean, hopefully you're going to the literature as you encounter problems and other things. But the lit review in terms of writing the proposal, you would not put in that because that's what it took to put the proposal together.
And then would you say like lab sciences are like more likely to be chosen for this?
Nope. No, I would say that a lot of lab sciences have been funded simply because we've had more applications, but I wouldn't say that the odds inherently are favored that way. I mean, we look at the quality of the proposal. So we have certainly had proposals from just about every field at this point now, right?
And the lab, or the College of Science Tech does have, for instance, a little bit higher funding rates than College of Arts and Letters. And I think a lot of that deals with the fact that the mentors help them write good proposals. So it isn't as if the material is considered more worthy or whatever, but a lot of it is just talking
Yeah.
to your mentors and really making.
I mean, we don't sit there and go, well, that's a science proposal, so we really want to fund that. We want to fund good work and good ideas regardless of your discipline.
We funded dance, projects from the dance department.
Yeah.
Every semester, as a matter of fact, this last Eagle Spur round, we have 2 dance.
And that's because Dr. Len Hill works really hard with the students and they do excellent. They've won the top, one of them won the top award one time.
Yes.
The top proposal submission gets an extra $500.
Yeah.
And dance is always up there near the top. She works really hard with them and they do excellent work.
I think it is fair to say that the quote-unquote sciences have had more applications submitted.
Oh, completely, yeah. Right.
But that's the nature of our field, though, too. I mean, we're very much so in the mindset of writing proposals, and we're trying to communicate that to our students, whereas maybe some of those disciplines in the humanities are less so inclined to do proposals, and so students just aren't as encouraged. But there's no thumb on the scale, so to speak. I mean, when we look at this.
Yeah, I was wondering. I
Yeah.
just never see this.
We have
Did
a
we?
business last semester.
That was me.
No, we actually funded.
Oh, funded a business.
Yes.
Alexis Timke?
Alexis Timke.
Okay, I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, she's, hers was funded. I think I do remember, are you Jamie?
I am.
Okay, yeah, I do remember, yours, being submitted. And, I don't remember where it was, but
I don't remember.
anyway.
It wasn't one that I was assigned.
We don't, Jamie, typically we don't get a lot of business applications, but we want business applications, so yeah, so definitely do not let that
Yeah, don't let that discourage you.
discourage you in any kind of way.
Business
Not at all.
and,
And
nursing.
nursing,
Science run.
yeah, I think we still
Pardon?
haven't funded
Business is
that.
what makes science run.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have the money.
Any other questions or comments? All right, well, 6 students showed up. I expect to see at least 6 proposals. One from each other? Yeah.
Nish Hall is a past Eagle Spur recipient, what, 2 or 3 semesters ago?
Can't remember.
I know, it's a long time ago. Do you want to share any of your experiences with everybody? Was it a
Well, the whole thing was basically what he mentioned. Try to be realistic and honest. Like, even if you think, oh, this is a silly thing, I don't need to put it in there, don't worry about it. If it pertains to what you're doing, by all means, put it in there. Nothing, no idea is too silly.
And again, run it by your mentor. That's what you're there
Yes.
for, to help
Yep.
you figure that out.
If it's too silly, your mentor should tell you that.
And as a former mentor, let me just tell you, give your mentor plenty of time.
Yes.
It's due when? When is the Eagle Spur due?
April 1st.
April 1st, right? April Fool's Day.
It's 2 hours from today.
It is. Make sure your mentor has more than just a few hours to review everything. Give them plenty of time. Involve them in the process. As you complete sections, let them go ahead and get started on that as you move on to the next section. It's very difficult. Your mentors are busy. They're teaching classes. They're doing their research. They're serving on university committees, right? And so the day before it's due at 4 o'clock is not the best time to send something to your mentor and expect to get quality feedback. Now, many mentors will bend over backwards to try to help you even at that late moment, but you have to understand that the quality of what you're going to get in feedback, just because of the time crunch, is not going to be what might help you have a very competitive proposal.
Yeah, it took me and Dr. Bates almost a week of back and forth email.
That's right.
To find before I finally submitted it.
Yeah, you know, they're going to find, you know,
But then
and
again,
as you're writing, make sure you pay attention to Word where it underlines things in red. Okay, because one of the things from a mentor's point of view that's very frustrating is when I'm getting bogged down in spelling and grammar, and I'm not thinking about the bigger picture. You know, so make sure that it's as clean as possible. They'll still probably find some things, use a word here or change that word, and that's perfectly fine. But when it's every other word's a misspelling, or, you know, there's this sentence that has no punctuation at all and goes on forever, it's very hard for us to focus at that point on what we really need to be focusing on, providing you quality feedback about the idea, the process, potential pitfalls, appropriateness of the budget, because we're sitting there just editing, right? So we're happy to edit, but, you know, don't send your mentor your first draft. You know, write it, give it some time, go back and look at it, make sure everything's spelled correctly, commas are where they need to be, exclamation marks are not used.
let someone
Those kinds of things.
who's not in your field read it.
It's a good piece of advice.
Once before you send your first draft to your mentor.
Yep. If they can understand what it is you're trying to do, it's probably written appropriately for the reviewers.
And again, most of them are going to be good applications, but it's the ones that go up that little extra step.
That's right.
That are
Yeah.
just a little more polished and have just a little bit more explanation. So that's why you need multiple revisions of it, because good isn't enough. It has to be excellent.
That's right. You know, one of the things that I like to tell people, if I'm reviewing your proposal and I see a lot of mistakes, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, how careful are they going to be with their project? Okay? So it's very, very important that this be as polished as you know how to make it look. And I would say the polished ones typically float to the top. I mean, I can't think of an example where one that I looked at and went, man, this is an impressive writing style, didn't make the funding cut. So keep all that in mind.
Try to get someone who's not in your field to read it before you submit.
Yeah, it's a good piece of
Because
advice.
the main thing is that when you go back and forth between your professor and yourself, you're only focusing on someone who actually knows stuff about what you're writing. You're not focusing on the potential audience, which is, like you said, one of them who is definitely not in your field.
And we do that for a reason, because very frequently, not maybe when you're doing NSF grants, but a lot of times, like for instance, internal grants within the university, you do have a diverse audience who's going to be reading it. And so it's a good skill to learn early.
Yep. Know how to reach your audience. All right, well, enjoy your weekend. I look forward to seeing some of your proposals.